It happens sometimes. Does anyone have any questions about the test? I'd be happy to go over anything. I'd be happy to go over. Or we can just, file it in the trash can and
What is everybody?
I mean, I agree with that. I can't think.
Let's see. We're missing.
Isn't there like
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people?
Isn't there automatic like conversion if like you put in like a negative number and I already made it unsigned? Wouldn't it put it back to unsigned? Like if
so if you pass in a negative number into an unsigned integer, it'll just make it a positive integer. So it's not backwards. So -1's really 4 billion.
Oh, that's
which is okay.
Well,
because your parameter says you take unsigned in, so 4 billion is a valid size for your array. It's just really big.
And that's why I should account for 0 because
at least they're just integers, right?
Because you were typing in negative numbers and broke my program.
I'll try to break your program as best I can.
And you made my arrays like 4 billion in size.
Which should work.
It did.
We'll just be really big. That's it. That's my question. Any other questions?
Did you?
Just the function templates lecture?
Yeah, that's what we're working on today. So we got, I think, 4 weeks left in the semester. Does that sound right? Sure. So assignment 4 is due this week. Yay! Aren't you all excited? Right? And then one more assignment 5, which is up on Canvas. In fact, Canvas has everything for the rest of the semester. So if instead of like doing Thanksgiving over the break, if you just want to like do everything for this class and be done, you could do that. You don't have to show up the rest of the semester.
We don't need family. No. We don't need turkey.
No, we don't need turkey. Who likes turkey anyway? Some people like turkey.
I'm just saying about fat kids, so
I like good turkey. I don't like overly dry, extra cooked turkey. Yeah, right?
I'm more of a ham person.
Yeah, I like ham a little bit more too. All right, so today's lecture is kind of a one-off lecture, although it's going to come back with assignment 5, so we'll need it. But it's kind of a cool feature of being able to make our programs, not our programs, the code we write, basically write less code. Does that sound good? Right? So I'm starting this lecture by saying it looks funky, but if you do it correctly, you can write less code as opposed to more. And that's a good thing, right, for us? Less is more. It's like one of those classes, like, here's how you do it the hard way, and at the end it's like, oh, you could have done this the whole time.
Happens in math all the time.
So if I wanted to write a function to find the largest of 2 parameters, right, what would that function prototype look like?
Are we including integers and doubles?
Well, we can't include integers and doubles in the same function.
Well, we'd have to write 2 functions.
Right. So some function that returns an int, right, called largest, right, and then it has int x, comma, int y. Good? Easy peasy? Right, for doubles, guess what? It's the same thing, double, and we can overload stuff in C++, so we can also say double largest, right? Double x, double y. Easy, right? I have to write 2 functions, because why?
Because you can't use the 2 different types in the same function.
Right, can't use 2 types of the same function, right? We're in a strictly typed language in C++ where types matter, right? So ints work with ints, doubles work with doubles, unsigned ints work with unsigned ints, right? So we have to make sure that when I write functions, right, all of the types match up. Agreed? Guess what? The body of, I'll just write the body of 1, but the body of both is actually the same, right? What's the body of this function?
X is bigger than y, return x. Otherwise, return y.
If x is greater, oh my goodness, greater than y, right, we return what?
X. No, return.
Return x?
Else return y.
Else return y, or we could just say what?
Return y.
Yeah, because it's a 1 line.
Because you guys are smart, right? that make sense? This is the body of this function, agreed? This would also be the body of that function. This would also be the body if we were working with, I don't know, booleans, although that'd be kind of weird, or strings, or any type that you can do a comparison. Does that make sense? So the same function body, right, the guts of my function, right, would be the same regardless of the type that I'm using. So long as that type has a way to compare, right, greater than, less than, that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? But, right, so I say that we're basically creating like flavors of the max function, right? Same max function, the flavors would just be what type do you want it to be, right? Does it work for ints, doubles, chars, strings, what have you? Let's see if we learned anything. What's one of the big points of writing functions? Don't say to confuse us.
To write less code?
To write less code, right? So one of the big reasons we write functions is to write less code, right? Oh, look, here's code that shows up here in my program, and it shows up here, and it shows up here, right? Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write a function so that I can just call it here, here, and here. Make sense? Types make that a problem for these type of functions, right? The functions where we don't care about types, right? This max or largest function, right? Doesn't matter if they're ints or doubles, it's the same function. But now I have to write one for each of them, right? So I'm maybe writing less code, but all of a sudden I'm writing duplicate code. It's the same body in my function, right? So I keep writing duplicate code over and over and over again. And the whole point of functions is to what? Not write duplicate code. Everyone see the problem? All right. Let's look at this real quick before we get into how we write that. Look, it's so small this morning.
It's in widescreen mode?
I don't know, maybe. Right. Nothing exciting here, right? An int function called max, a double function called what? Max, a char function called max, and a string function called max. And the body of the functions are exactly the same, right? We're allowed to write a bunch of functions with the same name, overloading, right? That's allowed in C++. And I have to do this because, right, I need types.
What are the string values comparing? The ASCII version?
Yeah, so string value compares ASCII. So it's lexicographic ordering, so it's not,
So like Z
it's not
is bigger than
alphabetical.
A kind of thing?
Z is bigger than A, but capital Z is smaller than lowercase a. So as long as you get them all in the same case, upper or lower, then it's alphabetical order. But if it's not, then it's not alphabetical order. Does that make sense? Right? And so, right, let's translate this to maybe like your linked list that you wrote, right? Because you guys wrote a linked list, perhaps 17 through 20, right? What did your node hold?
Contents.
So it held contents, which is of type what?
Int.
Int, and it held a next node, right? Every node in a linked list is always going to have a pointer to a what? A next node. What changes in the list, possibly for your node?
Arrows, right?
No, not the arrows. Not in the list. Sorry, I probably should have. What changes in the node, right? It's the data that we want to hold, right? In a linked list, you can make a linked list to hold integers, or you can make a linked list to hold what? Doubles, or a linked list that hold what? Strings, right? All my examples on the board, right? Dealt with strings, right? But guess what? The node's the same, but you would have to rewrite your whole linked list with a node that held strings. Does that make sense? Right? Once again, the node doesn't really care about what type of data is stored in it. The algorithms work exactly the same regardless of the type, but I have to write a bunch of them because we're in a language that cares about types. It would be nice if I could just write one and say, hey, store ints or store doubles or store strings, right? Or store, right, characters.
Wouldn't that cause problems? Because you can like say I want an int and a string in there.
Well, we're going to find out that we can do it, but we're still saying it's all a type. So it's all ints or all doubles. And there's a way for us to do that.
Like make an object?
We'll get there. So we say some of these algorithms are type agnostic, meaning they don't really care what their type is, right? The algorithm is going to work the same regardless of the types that the algorithm uses, right? We see this in pseudocode a lot, right? So like our sorting algorithms, right? I gave you pseudocode, right? And then we just said swap. The swap didn't care if it was swapping doubles or integers or strings or characters, right? The algorithm's going to work for everything, right? So a lot of times our pseudocode is type agnostic, but we're writing in a language that cares about types. So there's the swap pseudocode. Does the algorithm care about what A and B are? No. Right? The algorithm doesn't care. We don't really care either, except we only care that they're the same type. Right? A and B, if I'm going to swap them, they should be of the same type because we're in a language that cares about types. All right? So A and B should have a type associated, as should what? Temp, right? A, B, and temp are all of the same type. They're all ints. They're all doubles, right? In your to-do list application, right? They were all to-do list or to-do item pointers. That's what you swap, to-do item pointer, right? Just so long as they're all the same type, the algorithm's going to work. So the algorithm does not care about types. It just cares that it's set up correctly. Does that make sense? Right, so I can create one for integers, right? Int temp equals A equals B. I mean, A gets assigned the value of B, right? We all know it's not equality. B equals temp. Does that make sense? Right, and that works for integers, but what? It also works for doubles, right? It also works for characters, it also works for strings. So on and so forth. Does that all make sense? Anyone have questions so far? Besides maybe why you're teaching me this? Once again, do you want to write 10 swap functions if you have to swap 10 different types? Or do you want to write one swap function? I'd rather write one, right? So that's what we're getting to, is that maybe we'd rather just write one. So it'd be nice if we could do something like this. I'll let you digest that for a second. So I still have my swap function. Doesn't return anything because it's by reference. But basically we're saying here's a placeholder, right? Some type of the variable, some type of the variable, some type of the variables. Guess what? All three of those are the same what? Type. Right? They're all integers, they're all doubles, they're all characters. But can I write, right? This is closer to C++ code. Can I write code that can do that? What do you think?
So the type is a variable as well?
No, I'm saying type of the variables. So the type of the variables is integer, or the type of the variables is double. So the type is not a variable. It kind of feels like it though. I see what you're saying.
Okay. Well, how that is structured looks like that is a variable as well that you would define somewhere else.
Yeah. We're gonna see how it gets defined. In fact, the compiler is going to do a lot of work for us today.
Good.
This is where I'd like to end my lecture and be like, actually, you can't do this, so we're done. Right? No, obviously we can do it, right? And the way we do it in C++ is function templates. All right, so we're going to make a template function. All right, and that is going to create a lot of functions. So let's talk about what a template is. Right? A template is just a pattern, right, for creating similar things. Right? Everyone's used a stencil before. Right? We did that in grade school, right? For fine arts or something like that, right? So here's my triangle stencil, okay? This is gonna be key though. That's a triangle stencil, right? It is not a triangle. It what? Makes triangles, right? It produces triangles, right? So the stencil is not a triangle per se, although it is a triangle, right? But its goal is to make triangles. Right? I can make a lot of triangles and a lot of colors, right? Because we're into animations now on our PowerPoint slides, right? So I want a blue one, and I use the stencil, and I spray paint it, and I get blue, right? Or I get, I don't know what color that is. Orangey, right? Some other kind of greenish blue. gray, really ugly yellows. Apparently my color palette was not so good.
You just went to the store and just grabbed a bunch of different colors.
I just bought the ones that were on clearance. Right? Everyone's like, I don't want to use these colors for anything. This looks terrible. Like puke green, and I don't even know. So, ready for some key questions? How many times do I create this, the stencil? How many times do I have to create it?
Once.
Once. How many times can I use the stencil? An infinite amount of times, right? As many as I want. Good. Right? And another key is that, okay, I created the stencil. When I created the stencil, did I have to know what ugly color I was going to use? No, right? I choose the color when I'm ready to use the stencil. I make the template, and until I'm ready to use the template, I don't care, right, what color I use. Or in code, once I create the function template, right, I don't care at the moment if it's going to be ints or doubles or characters or strings. Right? I'm going to choose that later when I'm ready to use it. Does that make sense? So those ideas translate to, right, function templates. So they create a pattern, right? And we're going to have a parameter or parameters of a certain type, right? The type will be templated, right? Which allows me to create it for a lot of different things. So now we got to get into the weeds because the concept maybe is nice, but we all know C++'s implementation of stuff is ugly. So we'll look at what they are. So these parameters are called template type parameters, right? And they're placeholder parameters. Once again, we're making the distinction between a template and the actual function. Okay? We write a template, and then lots of functions will be created from that template by the compiler, which is nice. So here's my original one. And so when you're templating functions, my recommendation is always to write the function not templated. Okay? If I was going to write swap, this is max, right? But if I was going to write swap, I would swap integers, right? I would write the function to swap integers. Then I would look at it and be like, okay, what can I template, right? What are the types that we don't care about? So when I look at this, right, this max function works with what? Integers. This int and that int are, right, they're of the same type because we're comparing two integers. Agreed? This int is also an int because we're what?
Returning.
Comparing two integers and returning. So this int, and that int are all right for, right, templated type parameters. Does that make sense? Because they're ready for us to say, they don't have to be ints. They can be doubles, they can be characters, they can be strings, and we should be good to go. So I have 3 places I want to template, but the key is, right, how many different types? 1. Right? So I'm templating it with one template type parameter because there's only one type, right, that I really need to pull out of here. When you get into complicated algorithms, it's going to be like, okay, all of these should be of one type, but then there's these other variables that are all of a different type, and you can get multiple ones, but we're not going to do that. That seems crazy. So we just need one template type, right? And to make it easy, we're just going to call our placeholder type, because it's a placeholder for a type. Remember, we're trying to make this stuff easier for us. You can name it almost anything, right? Just like you can name variables almost anything. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it obla-di, obla-da if you want to, but type is probably good. Look, what did I do? I just replaced the word int with the word what? Type. You think that's all you have to do? Yeah, you wish, exactly, right? I just told you this could be named anything, right? So there's a little bit more we have to do. But this is almost actually everything we have to do. That's kind of nice, right? So notice I took the int, the 3 places that it showed up, and I replaced it with, right, a templated type, which eventually could be ints and doubles and characters. We're not finished, obviously, because we don't know what type is, right? And so let's give it the template type parameter. So we use a template parameter declaration, right? Keyword template, and then in my alligator jaws, I say type name, and then whatever word I chose. Right? So this type corresponds to the type in my function, and we put this as the first line Well, the first line before your prototype and the first line before your definition. So I told you there wasn't too much more we had to do. So template, type name, type, keyword, right? The word I'm creating, type. Type is a placeholder for integers and doubles and characters. And so on. And now this function works with any type, which means it works with integers, it works with doubles, it works with characters, it works with strings. What does it not work with?
Objects.
Well, it'll work with some objects, because strings are objects. Right? Well, what objects will it not work with?
Custom.
Okay, it might work with custom ones. Only if what? Only if we've overloaded the greater than symbol. Does that make sense? So this will work for any type that works with a greater than symbol for comparison. You can write classes that work with the greater than symbol, right? Because we can overload those operators. So long as it works with that, and strings have been, right? We can use the greater than symbol of strings. As long as it exists, it will work. Not a problem with the template though, right? This will compile just fine. But then if I tried to use it with a user-defined type, right, it would give me that really long error message of, right, no matching operator for greater than symbol. One of those. Right? And swap would kind of be the same way. Right? There's my swap, right, function, right, for pseudocode. And so now we're able to write a function, right, called swap that will work with any type. It'll work with any type, right? So now I can just say template keyword, right? And then in the alligator jobs, we say type name, right? And then I'm going to just call mine T. Right? I'm going to call it T for two reasons. Can you guess the reasons?
It means type.
It means type, and it's shorter because programmers are what? Lazy, right? So that's one reason. And then two, because programmers are lazy, right? When you look at other people's code, it's always going to be T, right? Because we're lazy, right? It's T. T is short for type. So we do that, and then my swap algorithm once again was just a void function called swap, and then we just say tx, comma ty. That kind of looks funny, huh?
Texas.
Right, and then what? T again, because we need to create my temp variable, and it's of type what? T, right? Because they all share the same type. So T temp equals x. X gets assigned y, and y gets assigned temp. Once again, the key thing is that the inside algorithm does not care about the type. Right? The inside algorithm does not care about the type. It's just, right? So long as everything is of the same type. And then, because I don't want to do this incorrectly, technically, right, that should have an ampersand. Why should I have an ampersand?
So you're not creating copies.
So you're not creating copies, right? So if it was by value, right, no ampersands, it would swap in the function, and when the function went away, what would happen to the original values?
It would just
Leave it, right? They'd be the same. So you'd write a very localized swap function. We're just going to swap in the function, but then it goes away, right? If we want those changes to be saved outside of the function, right? Slap some ampersand. And so we should be able to take our templated max, right, and do some things with that. So here's our first overloaded function, but I'm just going to change it, right? Once again, I think it's easier if you write it regularly and then template it, right? It also allows you to like test it a little bit before you template it, because sometimes your templated compiler error messages look really ugly. So I'm going to say template, and then in here I'm going to say type name T. Right? And so now instead of ints, I'm going to say T. I'm going to say TX and TY. And this allows me to delete, right, the double one and the char one and the string one. Right? I don't need 4 of them anymore. right? I can just template the max one. Now the cool thing is that, all right, here it is templated. Look in main, right? Call the max function, and it takes in an integer and a what? And an integer, right? 2 ints, right? T and T, those match. So it will write, the compiler will write a max function that works with integers. There's another function call with 2 what? Doubles. And so it will write a templated max function, right? For doubles. And 1 for characters and 1 for what? Strings. So before I had to write 4 functions and have them be overloaded, now I can write 1 templated function. And assuming that I wrote it correctly, it'll work.
So they're still being written? It's just that you're not doing it?
The compiler is writing it, yes. Still has to get written. So at compile time, the compiler looks at all your function calls, and it looks for functions that match those function calls. And it sees the templated function and says, can I create a function from this template that will work? And if the answer to all those ifs is yes, then, all right, then we're good. Right. Did it compile? Say yes, right? What is bigger, 5 or 10, right? So it works with integers, doubles, characters, and strings. Now let's do something weird. That's part of this class, right? What if I did 5 and 10.5? Is that gonna work?
We'll find a matching function.
Well, isn't the function where you're comparing two? Well, that
Here's the
wouldn't matter.
function
Would
right
it?
here, right?
Is it of the same? Like, do the types have to be the same?
Well, let's find out. So no matching function for call to what? Max, that takes a what? An int and a double. Look, and it says here's the candidate templated thing, but what? It takes 2 t's. Right?
Yeah, they're like.
Which means 2 ints, or what? 2 doubles, or 2 characters, or 2 strings, because they're both t. Does that make sense? If they weren't both t, if they were like t1 and t2, then you could have 2 different types. Right? But here the template is for t, which is the same type, so it should be of the same type. All right, I like this. Template, argument, deduction, substitution, fill, right? Once again, it's trying to deduce from your template how to create this function. You can't, because they're what? Look, it even tells you. Conflicting types for parameter 2. It's saying you want a t to be an int, but then you also want a t to be a what?
Double.
A double. Is that going to work? No, it's not going to work. I'm not listening. All right. You want to get even more into the nitty gritty? You ready for that? Right? So template's a keyword, right? It's going to change colors for you. Right? And then all of your parameters go inside the angle brackets. That's where if you needed like 2 types, you can say template type name type 1, comma, type 2. Right? You could do a lot. Right? Type name makes our templated type. You can actually use the word class instead of type name. I'm only telling you that in case you see other people use it, but don't use it because it's not a class. Class means very something specific for us, right? So while you can say class, don't call it class. So that normally we just call it T, right? Not type, because that's 3 more letters than I need. But if I needed multiple types, right? 1 for ints and 1 for doubles, or 1 for doubles and 1 for ints, right? You could do this. Right? Multiple ones, not too bad. Notice they're named different, right? T1, T2, right? Remember that's a placeholder for a type, whatever that type may be. I kind of alluded to all this before, right? So it's a template. The compiler will create the function from the template, kind of on demand at compile time. It doesn't make like 50 of them. It makes as many as it needs per the function calls in your program. So if in my last program, I called the function 4 times, right? 1 with ints, 1 with doubles, 1 with chars, 1 with strings. So it writes how many functions? 4, right? The compiler writes them, right? The function template instances are the ones written by the compiler, right? So there's my template, there's my function call. So it is going to write a max function, right? And the types are going to be what? Int, right? Because 3 and 7 are integer literals. Good. So we'll write that form. So the compiler writes this. Okay? Should we go back to that? Right? This is what you write a template for a max function. When you call it and compile, the compiler writes this, right? It writes the templated function. So it's not that less code is being written, but less code is being written by you, right?
So you would have to overload your comparison operator as well, right?
Yeah, for
For two different types. Like you give counter.
for like objects and that kind of stuff, right? We know how to compare integers, so that's fine. So only with objects,
Like the T1, T2, that's where you get your compiler.
if it doesn't work out. Does that make sense a little bit? Let's see if I can break something real quick.
Also on a string, does it like add up those values or are they just like sitting next to each other?
I think it goes line, character by character. So it compares the first two
So like-
characters, the second two. And once one's bigger than the other,
So
that's
like A is smaller than AA. But it's not like A plus A, it's A next to A.
Yes,
So
yes.
if it was 100, it'd be
Takes the
100,
places.
100. Compared to 100.
Everyone give my compiler error, right? I put a colon in there in my template.
Why'd you
Probably
do that?
let me fix this down there too, back to what it was. Let's see. That was actually a nice error message. Trying to give us, sometimes we get really ugly messages. Let's do this. Struct temp and x. Let's temp x equals 1, y equals 2. I'm just making some structures. Now structures, right? Yeah, we can compare integers inside of structures, but we can't compare two structures together because we haven't overloaded the operator. So if I call max and I say x, and I say y, let's see what happens. Right? So what do we get? Error what? No match for operator what? Greater than, right? The operands are of types what? Temp and temp. All right. So there's my if statement, but really it's saying it didn't know how to do that. The key thing is up here. What does it say? In instantiation of T max, and it tells us what? With T equals type what? Temp. So it tells me what type it made the function template from. Right, so I made a function from the template. It used the type temp, but it said when I made that one, we had errors. All right, and so it kind of tells me where the errors are. But once again, the error's not with the template because if I remove this line max xy, right, it's going to compile just fine. Right? The error is with when it created the function from the template, that function, right, with that code was not able to run for whatever reason. In this case, because the operator wasn't overloaded for that time. Does that make sense? Questions there? I think I don't want to talk about this. Let me see. Nope. I want to talk about this eventually, but we templated functions. You can also template classes, right? Meaning the things inside the classes go back to, like we said, template a node, right? A node was a class, so the integer in that node could have been templated. So I could have made the template, right, to work with integers or doubles or characters or strings, okay? So we can do that. All right, you will have to do that. You will have to do that on assignment 5. So assignment 5, we're gonna get into trees come Monday, next Monday. When we get into trees, they also have nodes. And for your assignment, you're going to take what you did in your labs and basically do the same thing, but you're going to template it. Meaning that that node can work not just for integers, but also for doubles and characters and strings. Does that make sense? Right? So I don't want to talk about this yet, though, because you have an assignment due on Friday, Thursday, something like that, that you want to work on. To get that assignment done, you really need to do labs 17 through 20, which I haven't graded yet, which means you can still turn them in, right? So I want to give us time in lab today to work on the new stuff, but also maybe catch up on some of the old stuff. Does that sound good? Right? Wednesday, we're going to do recursion. Might be one of the hardest lectures that we do all semester long.
So pointers wasn't even that bad?
No. The lecture itself, so recursion, fundamental concept, really easy to understand. So I'm going to talk about it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's super easy. But when you try to apply it, meaning that I give you like a problem to solve and I say do it recursively, it's really hard. Maybe not for you. Recursion is the hardest thing for me. So
We do it pointers?
huh?
Recursion pointers?
Some of it will have pointers, but there won't be any pointers on Wednesday. But recursion was probably the hardest thing for me to understand when I was doing my schooling. Mostly just because you look at it in a totally different way. So you write your algorithms way different than we're used to writing algorithms. So anyways, that's come on Wednesday. It'll be good. It'll be great.
Look at factoring math and conferences. 7-year-old elementary kid.
Yeah.
Super good at it. Pisses me off.
You're like, this is supposed to be hard. He's like, I got this. I got this. Questions? So this is lab 21, this templated one, where you're gonna write. I guess I could show it to you because you want to see it, right? DA2. There aren't that many labs, so that's good. Maybe that's good for you. I don't know. Hey, the good news about today. All right, I want to be very clear about this. This says write a function called prepare for display.
We've already done that.
You've done that this semester. Assuming that you've done your labs, you've done that this semester, right? Has value, you've done. Value at, you've done. Sum, you've done. Swap values, you've done. This is the array lab.
Wait, so we just have to make
Which
these,
is like lab 5 or 4 or 6 or 8 or I don't know. You have to find it. I don't care where it is.
so we just have to make these templates.
Right? And all you have to do is make it a template. So prepare for display before had an array of integers, right? And it like comma separated them or colon separated them or that kind of stuff, right? So you don't have to rewrite the function. You wrote it. You just have to add the template type name T at the top, right? And change int in some places with T, okay? Where people get to problems with templates is that they like, oh, there's 10 integers in this function, I must make them all templated, which is not always the case, right? Only the ones that should be templated should you make templated. Like, if you have like a for loop and you say int I equals 0, don't template that int. Okay, that int is for counting. It doesn't matter if what you're counting are integers or doubles or characters or strings, you still count with what? Integers. So don't make it templated. Now the array itself that held integers, you should template because it can hold integers or it could hold doubles or it could hold characters. Does that make sense? Right? So don't just like find and replace. Oh, find all the ints, make them t's. Right? But what I'm trying to tell you is the logic of all these functions you already wrote. So if you would like to rewrite them because you want the practice, great. You want to just say thank you, former self, for doing something for me, you could do that as well.
That was my past self.
Yeah, right? Save state, right? Load the save state. And
What if I didn't
you're
save?
so much smarter though than what you were, right? That was like 2 months ago.
But what if I forgot to save?
You forgot to save, and CodeMV gives you a right auto save anyway. So.
No, I'm talking about like my past self.
Oh, past self, yeah. Well, you should have realized that in code you can't just jettison what you learned before. I hope you guys will enjoy this. What?
Oh, yeah?
Think so? Sometimes. I think everyone did better on the code than they thought. I'm hoping.
You see it in some forms too.
I said assignment 4 is due. It's either Wednesday or Friday or Thursday. It's due this week.
You see that in some form?
No, you can't really deduce the time. Which is calling, so they didn't know about what they're going to do. So you have to like double.
Yeah.
This is 3 and this is 8. Okay, you output the values for the separator. And you output it again. I'm wondering if this should be down. Maybe? And that would be size minus 1, right? That's roughly that. We're going to give you this side. You would have done that side, but it would give you a problem. The side is always too big for you, right? Yeah, I would definitely give you garbage values. I don't mind those. Right, gotcha. Yeah. And I didn't know what
He disappeared, so it's gonna be a second.
Oh, then,
Yeah, he disappeared into the void.
No.
everyone's telling me the sound form yet?
No.
No.
I'm just gonna let that be the one where I take 2 weeks to do it.
Sounds later too.
Isn't that what everyone does?
It was mainly the pointers of it. Again, make sure you say previous grade and then that's when you have it. It's where all it's going to say.
I think that's the errors with just programs.
It just says, hey, it's like, oh, I'm like, so I'm just commenting that on see how it interests me after.
But eventually,
I learned that sure it's the same. Like one thing. So it's flipped off.
yeah, it's a lot of different stuff. Because like, one difference is you want to use the same functions, but you just make sure that the last step. And make sure the first one is 40 for well.
Sure. That's just a lot easier. But it doesn't really get us the time there.
Pretty straightforward, right?
And then make sure you click the full, and then paste it on the folder.
That's what I did. I was going to put it in.
I think you can roll it on under folder. Yeah. You might go to check with all of them. I never really thought about why.
I saw the times when I put it in the morning. I thought it was actually
Here's one for the TV.
That's not it. You picked the wrong profession.
gotta take my, all library code. Yeah.
I say I want to get a software engineering job.
Yeah, I can take those all library code. I'll use it.
It's like saying you're allergic to the peanuts, but you work at like a planner's factory. Dangerous. Like to live life on the edge, you know?
Size should always be passed on as reference, by reference.
Size?
Yeah.
No, like the size of the array?
Yeah.
I do by value. You don't want the size to change. Right, arrays don't.
The difference between what's happening here and what you're doing here. Like, are you doing the same thing with me? Like this, or is this just like a template of the whole class?
This is a template of the whole class.
And these ones,
We're just doing those. Yeah, so this keeps the array all internal, right? Here, the array gets massive. Oh, it's similar, but.
so I wouldn't have to, like, define
No, you don't exactly.
that's because, that's an array class,
Mhm.
so then,
It's a template array class, I just know what kind of it. That's what it's
so then we just template class B just above it,
So you value, yeah, just like that.
that's it.
So the values, we all those are.
That's the different class B.
Yeah.
The definitions or the definitions?
Both. Template type name T shows up everywhere. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
0, your output.
Yeah. So some, right? You said in sum, that was your old one, right? But it can't be in sum because you might be adding whatever, right? So then you say T. Say T sum.
Oh, you don't know what the consider zero?
No, over here, the 0, you say T, correct? Called the default constructor for whatever it is that you're doing.
Okay, and that's fine.
Yeah, so return that, right? Yeah.
And I put template on top of
Yeah,
all of them.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So you're just making functions that work with all array types, right? Because finding the largest value in an array is the same, regardless of what you're finding, right? What type the array holds.
That's good.
The base class item, right? So base class item, oh, yeah, you also have to do whatever same idea. And the thing is that now, instead of doing all five, because item is part of designing now, it's actually called a constructor for item or initialization section. So you do colon, and it's an item, array, name, comma, value. You do comma, whatever else is comma, calories. And then you all those. It's all kind of you do yourself like that. Get this class out of the way so you go on next step. Yes. Perfect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
SS dot set precision.
Yeah, you do. Well, you do cout dot s set f, you do all, and then yeah, ss dot.
What? Standard.
So it looks like.
Oh, you use it?
No, so.
You still need to use it.
It's in random memory. With C++, so it'll be like a string SS, say SS dot setf to BIOS. You still have this memory range, right? SS to BIOS. And then you say SS dot precision.
Oh, okay.
And then you can, SS whatever.
I'm not sure I've ever done that.
Maybe you just copied it. We did it and had these two labs, right? Because we did it for this when we created the spaceship.
I remember setting the set width and set precision. That's something that big old line that was so good.
And the cool thing about precision is it only works on doubles. So like you're making a templated one, which is going to work for ends and doubles and strings and everything, but if it's not double, this stuff doesn't apply. So you don't have to like know that it's a double in order to do it.
So that's going to set 2.50.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's would be on the. Are those like flag operators and the flag is like a separator?
Yeah. So you turn on bits.
I see.
I have a little thing. So obviously, show point means show the decimal point.
It's just similar format to
And fixed means fixed notation as opposed to like scientific notation.
Oh, I see. I have to do the using standard.
No, because it's all part of SS. We're not doing set precision.
Oh. That's secretary.
Set precision you use inside of insertion operations, so inside of this kind of stuff. Precision just is outside. You just do it on the object. So.
It was like SS arrow, then you use the set precision. Oh, okay, that might have been the format they used for random.
Right. I feel like it's weird because precision, once you send it, it stays. So I have to do that operation outside of the insertion operation. Now set width only applies to the next thing you output, so that I like to do.
I see. Create the new thing and set the head. Passing in the contents. Alright, so and then this I invoke head, which is basically it's set next node to temp the original temp. This part you need basically if that's true, if the original head and the tail, or if it's null, that means there's only one node. And then you're adding another, or the reserve node is now you're adding a node, so now there's only one node and you need to set count to that. But only when that happens. If there's already one that exists, that doesn't mean something that. That was the part that was hard for me to figure out. Or not.
Character. Well, it says not character. So exactly the boolean. This function. Remember, I told you can't just put T everywhere.
Right.
What is this function that says at return what? Right, what is your function return?
Ah, okay, yeah. Well,
I know, I write comments today. I don't know what these things. What's the point?
I feel like I ended the Lord. The lead. I'm trying to turn on my files. You and the files.
Good team. I haven't graded 15 yet. More than a lot. Got stuff in it.
Got something in it?
Well, this was the bonus for one, anyways.
Oh. I didn't hit it?
Making it right now. No. You put your name in it.
Wait, so we weren't supposed to do that one? Oh, it's because of the fire.
You don't have to do that one. All the time on this. Yeah, you put your name on the top. Maybe you're just doing that as habit. We didn't write it down.
Well, we didn't have to do that one.
We didn't have to do that one. It's worth 0 points.
And 16.
And yeah, there's no 16. You basically did like 16 like that. Or you tried to do like 16 like that?
Try. I could have basically gotten an extra 20 points because it was compiling on the computer, like using coin flip. It was hoping it would
Yeah. No. So these going to be a thing. So these parameters, let's go to parameters. Then there's 5 because a food item 5 things. So you have to write
Yeah.
There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all columns separated. Great. And then in here, instead of saying like name underscore, like this name underscore equals name or current name, because you're not in an item, you're a food item. Right. So in here we just say we call the item constructor. No, because this is that item construction. That is the password. Here. Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, right. It's more efficient.
It's not long.
Right.
I'm missing that template.
Correct.
Yeah.
The next
Not that was the world weird. Because if you think about when you, because normally you would do like class name, colon, class, angry job, what type of structure, just T. Yeah, that's pretty. Let's see. So this is valid indices, right? So size has to be at least here. Although it is. Size is well, should be greater than.
Oh, that's good. That's good. What is it? Is it 0?
Zero is valid.
Well, I mean, that's considered unsigned.
Yes. You don't show back up.
So the index has to be left. Just no way. Push it back. Yeah. Which is normal with classes for people. Create an instructor. That's why I'm going to tell you that. Which is saying at 5. Big.
He's getting a problem.
This is 5. You return 0.
Everything else is working.
Oh, I need to return T.
Okay, why friend? Here, I'll help you out. Do you ever do this? Do you just say return?
No.
No. You return T, that's what you say.
I use it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, okay, we don't ever do this, but return and parens a little weird. But look at this. Can we say return? Right. When we put the parens on a class name, that's the default constructor.
I see. So returning the
It's a default of whatever.
when you return it's going to construct that.
Or maybe you probably don't. Zero works for ends and doubles. It doesn't work for strings.
Don't initialize it.
Well, you have to initialize it because you need to start with something simple. That's where T paren. 0. T paren is now 0. T paren is 0 for anything. Start with the base. Does that make sense?
I'm German this time.
Yes, sir.
As long as it matches what you have down here.
So 0 worked fine when we did some before for a connection, right? It works fine with doubles or singles. It works fine with this is a but strings, now you're saying this by that T is string, you're saying string sounds zero, right? So what we can do is like we did with key paren is basically 0 for whatever type of it. So that will be 0 for integers, 0 for doubles, it'll be 0 for characters, it'll be the empty string for strings because the default string is empty, right? If it's some like to do item or it's a node, it's what the default for those are.
That makes sense. That's for Thank you.
And then if you have that on average too, then you can it. I don't know if you do or not.
What is it set up as 24? Okay, they pull it up for sure. And then you raise the floor.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I had it on front of me, but I didn't know where.
No, right, so here,
So would that mean?
here, right, once again, fuse types, so it'd be int value, x value, double value, string value. So we still want to.
Oh, no, yeah, this is true.
Right. But before we started to do that, I'll say double x. You can say here x. Right. You can't say string x.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
But in the sum, we still need our base thing that we're adding to start at 0. Whatever 0 means, right? Well, for a string, 0 means the integer.
Right.
Right. So the question is, how do I write a template that says, well, if it's an integer, make it 0. If it's a double, make it 0. But if it's a string, make it the integer. If it's this other type,
That's why you have to.
and we do that by having equal. Keep paren being the default of whatever.
Yeah, so the iterator will do that function, will connect.
So it's calling it's basically calling the constructor for that type, and it's producing whatever value that constructor is. So for strings, it produces the integer. That's the default constructor. For integers, which aren't actually a class, right?
So you calls the empty constructor whatever type.
Just a pocket again. Type these terribly, and one must have. This is.
Wait. I'm saying you just tell them it's next node, yes. Tail itself should point to the actual last node. The only time tail will point to null is when the list is closed to 4. So it would still be null points per second. So for your so if you're inserting this way, so you're inserting from here. So in the first one, the idea was you save your head, whatever point your head is, and save it to something else. You created a new one, pointed the head to the next head, and then made that use the next node point to the one. You use the same thing with that, I guess. So the idea is you're basically going to, first of all, it's empty, which is fine. There's no reason that literally will become an actual function. Basically, I got just where I'm head, not but if it's then you run that exercise considering where you're going to set tail to it. You're setting tail to the new node, faster progress, and then you're setting the old tails, the next node, to the new tail. Does that make sense? So before you were setting node heads next node to the new node, but now you're setting so yeah, so that's what you're doing. You're basically doing the same thing, just with increments. I have an increment inside of insert heads. But that's effectively like
Right, so sometimes it's just like default error messages. Like, who's gonna have first? That probably doesn't affect that. Put them in the front. Or we should be one
the only scenario
it's going to get size. It should be removing it. You have data, so that's not null, right? But this pop up. You have to contact the say and first to find it. And I probably wouldn't do that. Then there's a lot. Because like when the list goes from size 1 to size 0, right, you talk about all this stuff. So this should look a lot more like your original pop.
And we don't want to, yeah, otherwise.
Good, how are you? Backpack from my kid that I stole last time I saw it.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, it's
I'm gonna be rotated with a number of basketball.
So there's 10 values, they come to you don't have any. Maybe the next spreadsheet.
What are you missing?
A plus, yeah, 23 class and A plus. Well, actually, survey.
Wait, that
Maybe it will be
yeah.
I can take the econ.
I want to do it unless you want to go down that route. No, because you're not going to say
So that's because, so say this if statement evaluates the true.
No,
The code inside of it.
but I saw the
If you don't have a return, it just keeps, it'll continue. Putting a return makes it stop before it continues.
Yeah, I think you're probably,
No, void has to return a void type. When you return nothing, like just you're returning it.
Sometimes.
It has to match. And what matches the void is nothing.
Did you pass the A plus test?
The absence of something.
Then I don't.
The first one.
I read the books.
Yeah, I read the books.
I do. It's the same as like, so since because you have that else, you don't need to. If you, I don't like to use else if I can avoid it. Else if statements, I'll use return instead. It just is a way of kicking it. It's similar to like a break inside of a switch. It just, it ensures that it doesn't continue.
It's still a CCNA, but this is public to be a lot different. Because think about it, like,
The only time
all
you
the
need to
cloud
remove the
stuff,
head is if it
rest
exists.
is done.
Those are the two states, right? Either the head exists or the head exists. If it doesn't exist, you don't need to do anything.
So what I have here is
Actually,
one.
Yeah, if your size is 0, you just have to do it.
It's still like that, I know that.
Delete head. But
Printers.
you're gonna need a lot more than that, though.
Oh, really?
Because you're gonna have to, you have to update your arrows. So if you just straight up delete the head,
I can, everything else.
then your head is still pointing.
Take an all day Friday.
So you'd have to set your head to point to,
No.
think about how you do that. Remove head, so remove head. So remove head, just wait, the head's null, it's empty, you do nothing, so I'm just gonna do that in the So assuming that's not true, it has at least something. If head is equal to tail, that means there's only one item.
There's a lot of
And you do need to make sure you set, if there's only one item, you need to make sure you set the tail to null. Because you're about to delete that one item. And then, you delete it, and so you would delete it, you would set it to the head. This is what this is doing is ensuring that if there's more than one item, it's gonna fix it. It'll update all your items. So, it'll set temp to your hand. Your hand is gonna be set to its own next node, right? And then you delete temp, which is still working towards the original.
What's the ring all with?
Decrement size. So now it basically updates your head, so your head is pointing to the next month available node. Now, assuming there's only one item, that still works. Because if it's one item, your next node will be null, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be setting the head to null automatically and deleting 10, which is the original head. So even if there's only one item, it still works. So that's kind of the idea. But you can handle, if there's only one node, if you delete it, it's not tails, it's still gonna be pointing towards empty space. No, they don't, they're kind of designed to, but if you walk through your logic, you kind of, you'll see the errors.
I think one key is probably the same thing.
I think when you're like, it's not like I just popped these out and I didn't know what, you know what I mean? Like I started with a little bit and I was working a bunch of errors.
Yeah.
You know, I interacted with tail, adding the tail to null thing was the last thing we needed to do. I had an issue with tail pointing the garbage after they removed everything. The tail is going to be a little more involved.
23 class.
The system is one. PNA 1, PNA 2.
Yeah.
Is that the real stats class?
So I need to.
You found 4. Speed structure. So survey. Okay, so econ 4.
Yeah.
Stats. Piece of breakup systems. 4 classes.
You want to, that arrow means you're like trying to call a function inside of tail.
Yeah.
It's not, you're trying to set tail to null.
Oh, so it's equal.
It's that, I think it's stats.
And it's obviously only when it is equals. And you're about to. That's the end of that. That's the end of that. You just want, you only want that to occur when you're heading.
If I take like
Yeah.
you know, that's really? Yeah. I can't load on too much, it's already at 12, but I have a counter. And that's
No, okay, so you're gonna, so. First of all, you don't need, you're not creating a node, you're deleting one, right? You're deleting So what you're doing, first thing you do, you have your head is pointing to the first one. You're gonna temp also point. So yeah, you're almost there. And so the next step, you're going to.
Point to the next.
Correct. Correct, yes. That'll still solve your whole your issue. So, No, so that's just going to return the location of the next step, and it's going to store it in the head. So you're good there. Now the only thing right now pointing to that first node is your head. Your head's no longer pointing, it's pointing to the next node. So temp's the only thing pointing to that first node. So you need to delete temp. Delete temp.
I guess I could just settle.
And you don't need to set temp to null, because temp is gonna go away when this function is in the resolution scope, so you don't need to set it to null. The only thing you need to do
Maybe
is
the behavior.
decrement your size, and then,
Yeah, it's the same.
actually, yeah. That return isn't needed, I do have a return right there, but it's not needed. That should be good for that. And so your remove tail, if there's only one item, just call the remove item.
Yeah, that'll be,
Correct, yes.
Probably, she started at 8, but she should be at.
And then the way to look at it would be like head at next node equals null. I wasn't like using signs, and signs at 0. For whatever reason, I got all kinds of like difference.
In the computer science stuff, that's the difference, but not the highs. Because it's just mirroring.
You don't need a decremented code that's already present inside your remove head. So you don't need that part. What you do need to do though is make sure that the rest of the code doesn't run. So what would you put right after that? You can do what you're doing right. Well, I'm sorry, I thought you were going to type else.
I'll take them all.
You can either do an else statement, or what I would do is right after that head, I'd do a return an empty. The empty return is going to basically make it run remove head and then kick out this entire code. Or you do whatever. For me, it's easier just to look at it. So now you don't have to do anything. So the next part is going to be like.
It's terrifying. It's very terrible.
No, you don't.
From what I understand.
So it means that
This is the part of the
1 to 30 mils. Subscribe to this. The ones that are in English.
It's just pretty much a return.
Pretty much, yeah. This seems like an extra.
Yeah. I have 470 Spain.
The only thing. Yes,
Newsletters.
basically. But the only thing is, it's not returning the location head, it's returning head's contents.
Look at most of them you don't understand.
But yeah, you just want to make sure that it's not null. If it's null, you return
It's really hard for me to find like,
If it's not null, you
yeah,
return it's not.
legitimate.
There's nothing else you can find.
Yeah. So, yeah. So what do you think? So that's.
You can't really stop it
That's
because
only handling
none
if
of
there's
these
one.
things
What happens
are
when there's more than one?
illegitimate.
In fact, even before that, what happens when there's 0? So even before that if statement, I would make sure I go head does not equal null. And then
I mean, I read that, sometimes this happens, like someone gets your like credit card number.
everything you want to run if that's
They do all this, and then one of the emails in the middle of 1,000 emails.
just right inside their box.
But the thing is that all of these things.
What's in there is
come out
going
on
to be
my
everything.
emails,
So
my credit card's not really,
now if
yeah,
it's
none of
2
my,
or more,
none of my stuff's related to.
which you have your education school,
Yeah, trust my school.
you've already dealt with 0 and 1. So
Yeah. But it is, my school is not a few ways up, my
So, else will be, head point, head equal, head at, next node.
Well, so here's the tricky bit. You need to know.
Let's go with both cases. What if you don't?
This tail would always
Don't?
be in.
Then it shows that you
It
did.
is, unless there's only one node, both the and then.
What I'm working on is.
I mean, it has a little bit of.
If there's more than 2, if there's 2 or more. So,
A little more than.
okay, so you've done that, so basically, you're guaranteeing that it's gonna happen, there's at least, if it's not update, not 1, so you definitely, I would start out with contract, because you know you need it, and then we go back to
Science.
So the tricky bit is you need to know, you need to have the location of the node, the second to last.
Yeah.
You need the end becomes that second to last step. Now, our links don't work backwards, right? You don't have a next node, you don't have a previous node, you don't have a previous. So you need to iterate yourself all the way through until you find that end second to last node. You know that's what that is, because the next node will be equivalent to tail. So, but you want to, while I created the thing that, the nodes called item. Is not equal to tail. So when basically it will keep going to that and it becomes false, as soon as the item at next node is equal to tail, it knows, it now knows it's at the second to last node. And it states that adjusting either. So you can basically effectively delete tail and set the tail pointer to the either.
You're gonna try to take the turn thing.
Then you want to make sure you set either's next node to null.
I was reading up Reddit.
So basically, well, your either at next node is not equal to tail.
I don't know.
When it is equal to tail, that is a second point.
Last forever.
So,
I took her.
I'm kind of getting remixed out of the different variables.
It's not null. It's not equal.
That's something too.
If you were to say it's not equal to null, it would be the very last one. The very last one. Alright, so. Well, this is just.
I mean, I did,
all
so I'd already
while,
taken, I took top
stepping
one.
to the next spot. Comparing, so either equals either.
You want to do what? You're
So you're starting with the header.
Yeah. But I think they're also like realizing.
Or, well, it's true.
You know,
Kind of run the code.
people don't need it, so why are we still, you know, just like holdovers, they're like,
False.
you were really hard science class. Yeah, no, right, all of it, hey, I'm a computer science, but I took these hard
Basically,
science
when that
classes. I didn't
begins,
do the
either
dumb-
will equal second to the last node. So now you have the location of second last node. You are now clear to delete tail.
That's right.
I would.
Yes.
Delete tail.
Is it until equal to one?
I was thinking, so we removed it.
So you delete the tail, and you're not going to set the tail null. Delete tail, so that's done. Now you have an arrow. It doesn't delete the arrow. It just deletes what the arrow is pointing to. So now you still have an arrow. And you change that arrow.
You gotta get that, you get to pay work for something.
You're right. Because now your either, because your wire loop, the either is now pointing to second last node. You now deleted that last node. Second last node is now the current last node. So now you need to set tail to either.
Equal to 1.
See, we're just trying to the main story.
Classic pianos?
Aren't you excited?
I'm so excited, whatever.
And then one last thing you need to do.
Alright, great.
Now,
What a pain in my butt.
you set your tail pointing to that second last node. That second last node still has its next node pointing to that empty space.
What's that? Is
You
that?
need that to be pointing back. Which is the last node you're pointing to.
Yes.
So that's how you, now you're setting tail, arrow, next node, or set next node, to
Take care of them.
Yeah, with the boy and the.
set next node.
That feels good. I can't have my moments.
Even though, makes sense, right? Like, I know, it's like, I literally, when I was doing the same thing, I don't know if this is this one, but on one of these, I literally had to draw out, like, you know, I did the physics, figure out all the things. It makes a lot more sense. You know, so that's what your tail is, your gets, or basically just accessors, they just read through.
Well, they kind of, I mean, this time I think they, like, we had kind of like set things up to, again, like, and if we move it, then they'll probably, you know, then all of a sudden you get into.
What if it was the original instead?
The lab.
That's why when I did my move first before you get to the wild.
But they moved something around this last semester.
My lab it checks to see if one, if your thing's null, if it's not null, that value is given. You need to check to make sure it's not equal to your explanation.
It's kind of beneficial to me.
And check to make sure it's not yours, your tail.
for my other class. Like,
Then, else you'll run a while and then that is exam times through.
Their exam.
We can take that to you return the contents, you return the location of the situation.
Physics is freaking hard.
But I feel like physics 2 is better than physics 1 as far as.
Yeah, I just feel like running the wild loop.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you're doing electricity and all sorts of stuff.
That's what Dr. Computer said about it. He's like, oh, it's
Mine is actually not capitalized.
But it does like that all things like, because really, like, when you look around that class, you probably figure out what computer science students and they're in the class.
yeah, but you know that.
Yeah, right.
So, I'm going to.
Yeah.
Or we can do it.
You would do
I don't know what he's doing. Computer science. I understand physics though.
The only class that I but see, that like black and white.
For me, it's just the easiest way to think about it is just do it error. So that is the biggest amount of using.
Well, maybe that's.
Well, it's better. That's not, yeah, it's just not.
I mean, you think about it, like, you're gonna have bosses that are
That's basically what this one right
you're
here.
working with, the ones that are super big.
Gonna shift your.
I'm like, I'm all everything was passing out.
And that's great.
I like double, right? So it solidifies the knowledge and also now you have something.
I want to do this.
I was just stressing out if I didn't find something good and I was almost doing all campus to do what I did. I was so nervous.
You need to remember, like, all the time when you get paid. Like, I really don't get paid.
Feeling on it was really just so worried about how you trying to do on something. Yeah, I do that.
I think I got it wrong. I used to get a pretty good grade.
Because I don't know how far back I am. Alright.
Luke,
What?
I have some questions for you. For some reason, it's telling me that. Okay, when I tried to use the insert function here, I checked, make sure that if the head
is null,
or if it's if the head is greater than that, I insert the head.
So flip those, right? Because we evaluate these left to right.
Yeah.
Okay. If the head is null and you dereference null, what happens? Crash.
That's
right?
probably why it's breaking.
But if head is null first, if it's null, then it won't check the other side.
Might be why it's breaking.
That's why it's breaking in the first place. Maybe the only place, right?
Well, let's hope that's the only place.
Those don't work like regular.
So I say if head is null or.
Yes.
Okay. And then,
which is funny. You didn't really change any code, so you just switched it around. Now all of a sudden it's going to work better.
Wow, and it's effectively while by having negative things in the list. But what will be it's basically the next node, right? What will the next people?
That fixed a lot of things.
Yeah, there you go. Now you can start going 1 to 2Z on stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure that this is right. So I create. Well, obviously, if it's
empty, right, or it's greater, or the contents is less than the number to insert, right?
Is it when head is less than the number?
Oh, the number to insert. Okay,
I thought
sorry.
it was greater than.
Yeah.
Because then we want the smallest number.
Insert head. Right.
And then if the number is greater than the tail,
you should group these. That should be if. This should be else if. You don't want to do both, right? And you don't need to do the overhead of 2 checks.
Yeah.
Right. So if this, right? Else if this, right? If the number inserts greater than tail contents.
Yeah, so we close it off with brackets.
Yeah, right. We call it insert tail, because then you want this also to be an else, right? Otherwise, you were inserting head and then you were inserting again, which is going to be a big problem, right?
Okay.
Agreed.
Because I thought that if the if statement, if it's just one line, it doesn't require brackets, but in this case.
It doesn't, but because it's all, because one of them does, then you put them
Conditions
all.
have to be
Yeah.
met before. Okay.
So that's good. Else if the value to insert's greater than the tail, we call insert tail, great, and then that's your middle.
Yeah, and so for the middle, I have an iter equal to the head.
Okay.
And then I make
A
a
trail,
pointer for the
right.
trail. And I say as long as the
Contents
is less than the number, and I set trail to the iterator
Right.
equals
So that loop ends when, right?
when the contents is
Right.
when this
Right.
when this is false. And then I have the new node where iter is pointing to, right?
Mm-hmm. But you would say new node arrow.
Set next node.
Because the iterator is just a pointer.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, because this is an object.
Yeah.
And I need to access one of the.
So the new thing you created, its arrow points to the iterator because it needs to be before it, right? So it points to the next largest one, right?
Yeah.
And then the trailer, so same thing, the trailer, you want to say trailer equals new node because trailer is just a pointer. You'd say what?
Let's say equals is it the next
Same
node?
thing, yeah, set next node. Right? Because the previous thing, so you're saying the current thing you're adding, it will point, the current thing you're adding, new node, it's going to point to the next thing in the list, right?
Okay, so its next node is going to be pointing.
Right.
It's going to be, iter's going to be, okay, so the new nodes.
Mm-hmm. Because you went like this. You have trailer,
Okay.
points to here, right?
Yes.
You have iterator, points to here, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what else is here in the list, right?
Yeah.
And then you created this new node, right? And currently it points to nowhere.
Yeah.
Well, you need this new node's pointer.
To point to what iterator is pointing to.
No, to point to iterator. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what iterator is pointing to. Good.
Yeah.
Right? And then you need the trailer node to not point.
To point to the new node.
That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Because you're working with the arrows in the boxes, you always use set next node.
Okay.
Right? Remember, when you work with the arrows outside of boxes, you use assignment equal. When you work with arrows inside boxes, set next node.
Because those are objects, right?
Because they're objects.
Yeah, because you have to access.
They're random objects.
Okay. So I'm going to try to break this down. So this new node, right?
Which is this one?
Is that.
Right.
That is
set next node.
That pointer is pointing to what iterator is pointing to.
Good.
And then trailers, what it's pointing to is pointing to the new node now. Yeah, okay. So now it's all organized.
Yeah.
And
size goes up in that one.
did we have to write something to organize the list, or is this just doing it automatically?
It's doing it automatically because it's searching for the right spot to put it in.
Yeah, and so it'll move it around.
Yeah. So you never have to sort it. The list is always sorted.
Okay.
That's the beauty of it.
Great.
All the way until. Well. I feel like that's still not going to delete your own. Trying not to look at mine. But I feel like that's still not going to delete the last one.
No.
Just remoting to our desktop would be okay.
Yeah, right? I tried to get that software where we could kind of collaboratively do everything, which also could allow us to when
That is going to be the gist of it.
Listen, you write
There's
some
something
code.
wrong
Here,
there. So basically,
click the button.
see, right, so basically, the first thing it's going to do, you already have the errors, so it's going to set head to the next one, it's going to delete them to the original head.
Okay.
And it's going to catch up with the head. So,
We'll remove
time at the very last
same way
node,
you wrote it, right?
head becomes the very last node, we delete the second last node, iterator becomes the last node. Now, and then evaluates head,
Oh, yeah.
So this will evaluate to false, and it'll kick out without deleting the last node.
So I think the key is that the loop happens first, and then you do your checks.
Okay.
So this stuff is gonna move, the loop's gonna move all of it, and then when the loop ends, you check the point. So while the iterator.
That's what you're gonna do right after the while loop.
Right, and it's not, right, it's not. Right,
So basically this while loop's gonna leave a node at the very end, and then you just.
And then when it ends, you just check where iterator's pointing to. It's pointing to null.
You're calling it, yeah.
It's pointing to null. Not that, right? It's pointing to the same place that it's pointing to.
You're doing, yeah, if you do need to
It's
start.
pointing to the same place. The iterator's pointing to the same place that
There's also other things you need to do.
else is.
There's no decrements,
This.
but you don't want decrements. You just want to send it to zero.
You're trying to do it in a loop, which is good.
Yeah, I had it outside the loop, but it is like, well, needs to be in a loop.
Right.
Yeah.
So the while loop first, while iterator doesn't equal null, and iterator's contents doesn't equal.
Yeah.
So iterator here.
What I'm not really correct. The generator is not even data.
The iterator is pointer, and that is an integer, right?
Yeah.
How do you believe that's what actually looks, that looks pretty cool? I believe that's correct. You might have to look at your. Yeah. I do believe that's supposed to be a constant. What are your use file, or your H file is there? It's not there.
10 value equals 10 value.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a constant. It looks just like your
Iterator equals iterator, catch it up. You say iterator equals iterator constant. Not sure. And then you can start with it.
Are you gonna be here tomorrow?
Yes, I have something in the morning on campus, but I'll be around.
Sixth time I keep forgetting to bring you my, I forced specified.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, I have,
I just keep forgetting.
so I'm probably free at 10.
Run it, but it'll still.
So like,
I can bring it.
I'm free at 10 till 1:30, and then
Now you know.
After 1:30.
Now we kind of after like 1:30 I'm meeting with my boss, but I'll probably come back to my office around 2.
I probably won't be able, because I have a class at 2.
Yeah.
A class from 11 to noon, so I'll probably go to tomorrow. Cool, alrighty, we'll see what I do.
I'm still waiting for the new Microsoft Edge. I really want to try it.
Oh, yeah.
They haven't released it yet for public testing. Except for what
You gotta get on it. You gotta get on the beta test.
I'm already on the Xbox preview number, and it's sometimes really cool, but sometimes it sucks completely.
What tier are you in?
I don't remember to check tonight, but I'm running the new software where when you go on your friends list, and depending on what game he's playing, you can download that game file right off.
Yeah, you can access it right on the store.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
like that.
You don't like that?
Because you know how you get used to it, or like how you get used to join a party, you just press A.
Well, actually, they added a feature. I don't know if you have it, like what you're talking
They
about.
changed
But
the animations too.
yeah, like there's a thing that says what game they're playing, and it says you can join. And if you try to join and you don't have it, it says you can go to the store and look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And so now my whole friends are addicted to either the Jedi First Order, which just came out.
Jedi Fallen Order.
Fallen Order. People, my friends love that. And I've been playing Battlefront because I've been rewatching the series and I've been actually like focusing.
You've been playing Battlefront 2?
Yeah, Battlefront 2.
What's your gamer tag?
Favorite boy. I can send to you later.
Okay.
But I think I've been.
You guys have time to play games?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking. And off work, I try to.
We should totally play Heroes vs Villains.
Sounds about right.
I've been rewatching the Star Wars series, that's why. And then my friend's like, hey, I bought you Battlefront. You just send it to me out of nowhere. I'm like, really?
Yeah, it's only like, it's on sale right now for like
Like $12, yeah.
$7.
I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna play it because I've been rewatching the series. I just finished episode 3, but like actually like understanding what's going on in the whole storyline.
I was thinking about showing Star Wars to my kids this week. Or at school.
Your kids haven't seen Star Wars yet?
No. I don't have both. Disney Plus, right? You know, I own like these physical disc things that go into this other thing.
You use disc?
Spins.
Are we back in time?
What?
I have the original, the Star Wars Laserdisc version, right? That's the cool.
Are you serious?
It's the most unadulterated version of Star Wars.
I'm gonna be my game
The
time.
internet, like, oh, what's the proper order of everything while you watch the 4th one, and then if you want to know who Anakin's father is, you watch the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I'm like, I really watched the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Machete order. You get rid of that stuff. Here's your game, so you need that.
Yeah, I play Battlefront at least once a day.
He screwed it up really badly.
Well, DICE doesn't know how to balance heroes. We have Anakin, which can pull. He can actually he has 3 abilities that prone you. So like pull dominance pulls you, heroic might pushes you, and then we have what's the other one? It's like passion strike, which goes through blocks, and then they have retribution.
What makes me mad is how they treated what's his name? How did they treat his name? Doesn't favorite operator.
Is it from the Clone Wars?
Yes.
Darth Maul?
Not Darth Maul.
Grievous?
Grievous, yes.
Grievous?
How they really badly treated Grievous in the game. It was terrible. Because he only has 2 lightsabers, but he can only access his 4 lightsabers when you do his ult. Its ultimate ability.
Yeah, the unrelenting advance.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're walking up to like a blaster hero, they're gonna die. They're gonna die. But if you go up to like Obi-Wan, because he has a bunch of stamina, right? So there's a couple cards for him that give him like 80% stamina drain. So you can stand there and block everybody's attacks. But if unrelenting advance comes towards you, it drains like 40% stamina in a second. So you instantly lose all your
My
stamina.
most common joke that you hear me say, I was like, I love watching the Star Wars. It makes me feel like excited like a kid again. But then once I go to play Battlefront, I feel like an idiot. I'm like, this is not how it's supposed to go.
People are really good at that game.
People are
Like
overly good at it.
do not play Capital Supremacy unless you play Galactic Assault first, because Capital Supremacy is the sweatiest game mode in the game. People don't even care.
I'm sure you guys are well aware of the Microsoft Rewards thing on Xbox.
Yeah.
Like how you can earn points to like quests. I played like a bunch of like
Yeah, they
not
have
really new games that they're new to me.
stuff on Game Pass you can play.
I had a funny story.
One of the games I played that was supposed to be part of the quest was actually a Lego Star Wars game, Lego Star Wars Clone Wars. I got like 20 achievements for that. I didn't even do anything for the quest.
Yeah, one of them is like open the game. One of them's look at the credits. One of them's like start the game. It's really dumb. Like some of
Well,
those
it's so
achievements.
annoying because all I have to do is get 2 achievements. It'll take long enough to get 10 achievements and then even complete the quest.
Oh yeah, it's kind of broken.
Yeah.
The quest system.
Well, you already know my way.
Do you have the Insider Hub?
Yeah, I
Screws
do.
up really
Yeah,
badly.
you should get involved with the Insider Hub, because they if you get high enough in the tier, because the highest one is like preview alpha skip ahead, and I'm in that tier, I get updates like every single day or every other day, and they add like all these things, like they completely changed the home screen, like at the top where it says like home, community, store. It's not like that anymore. It's like up and down. So it's like the games you recently played, then it's the store, then it's community, then it's your pins and everything like that. You can like move it around.
I also, as part of another quest, tried to play ukulele, like the modern version of Kazooie.
Yeah.
It's really fun,
Do not disturb.
but again,
Right here.
it didn't increment the freaking quest.
Do you have Xbox Live Gold?
Yeah, I do.
Oh yeah, then
I think this is broken. This is really kind of stupid.
you might want
I
to.
was reading.
You know how to report?
Yeah, I was reading through the comments, like on
Just make sure after you're coming in
take
that-
up to 48 to 72 hours for some request to increment.
Oh yeah.
It's just really dumb.
I was like, I was so
Yeah, because they have to prove that you earn the achievements.
Yeah.
Like they don't want you just hacking into the game and then adding achievements to your account.
Yeah, but you would think it would need to take like up to 2 or 3 days for it to implement.
Well, then you think about all the people that are trying to get the same thing too.
I was just wondering, I was looking at like I saw links from last season and I saw like lists from our magazines. Actually, string functions even things the same as the one that you use that they're using now.
You're gonna be used to it in addition, so you don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I just copy paste all of it?
Yes. I guess that. But sometimes I can get it right, sometimes I get it wrong.
I don't know if you wanna help me like that.
No. No, they're.
So, I'm just starting my hairstream.
Okay, yeah.
And for some reason, it's turning out like that, where I want it to be like in the center. And this is what I've done with
Like grid, space, and like you want it in the middle of that.
and then I just did it down this. I was using space, I was just thinking that would give me white space on the side.
Oh,
You know, when I put it on the app, like this.
Exactly.
yeah.
It's making everything more for that.
Okay, so
Just let me know you wanna play, cause I play, Battlefront 2.
I don't have that game. I actually had Battlefront 1. Yeah. I played one match in it.
Yeah.
Got pretty much owned by people playing like, I realized,
Well, Battlefront is like Call of Duty.
yeah.
If you're not good at it, then people are gonna destroy you.
Well, it's just, in the very first match I played, there's like a shit ton of people just flying in the sky, and just every single time I'm like 10 feet, I get blasted by them.
Exactly. Well, they don't do that bad anymore. They focus on playing as heroes and then just destroying you as a hero.
Play Overwatch. It's actually a really fun game. They're starting to make a comeback now that they announced Overwatch 2.
Well, I play Battlefront 2 and then I play Atlas. I play poker, prominence poker, Minecraft. Play Halo Master Chief Collection.
Yeah.
I don't really play Fallout 76 anymore because ever since they added Fallout First, I'm like, I am not touching that game until they get it figured out.
Yeah. Because there's just a lot of hot water after that.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, it's kind of bullshit. Because, you have all these features that are now paywalled, which is dumb.
You know, so it wasn't that good from the get-go.
Well, I gave it too many chances. I gave that game way too many chances.